chipped in, far post just over Saba. And again, you don't need to bring play to a stall. Ball headed in, and Atlanta with Sleece has scored. Miami was down a player due to cramps. Atlanta kept playing, and a beautiful ball to the back post at the pole buries. Only his second goal of the season, and Atlanta's back in front, and only a quarter hour remains. It's over everyone's head. Campana tracking it down, but the whistle blows to bring this one to a close, and Atlanta rewrites the script. There's no Hollywood ending for Inter Miami. The Shield will be unaccompanied in the trophy case this year as Atlanta becomes united to knock off Inter Miami 3-2.
I love Phil Shane on the play-by-play for Inter Miami on 560 WQAM, but I disagree with him saying there will be no Hollywood ending. That is a Hollywood ending for Inter Miami, the underdog coming into your house with legends in the game and ending what would have been a historic run for our soccer team. I am extremely depressed and extremely upset, and I don't even know how I feel right now about Inter Miami. That's why we bring in our dude, Daniel Solana, the expert that is soccer on this show. Daniel Solana, just tell me right now what happened.
I mean, a whole lot of different things happened, Dan and Vlad, a whole lot of different things. The first, and it has nothing to do with the game. The first has to do with the fact that the MLS has these playoffs that reward teams that are absolutely weak and allow them to go into this postseason tournament. And, look, I understand it keeps, the fans of these teams that don't do well during the season kind of, watching the game, and it keeps them, paying money to go watch their teams. But I mean, let's be honest, guys. Let's say Atlanta United pulls off this historic run as the underdog, lifts up the trophy. I mean, they're the 18th place team in the overall table, and they're going to be your MLS Cup champion. I mean, that just goes to show you that this is this tournament, this MLS Cup tournament is an absolute joke. And MLS needs to, look at the rest of the world and start adapting to how everybody else does it. Because, I mean, what does that go to show you that, the 18th place team is now going to the semifinals in a tournament? It's a joke.
Well, you sound like Vlad with the NBA and the playing. It doesn't sound likely. It doesn't seem likely. It can happen. Like the 10th seed of a play and making it all the way to the finals and winning it. We almost saw it with the Heat, but they won the 8th seed. But they were already the 8th seed. They already had the 8th best record in the conference. Now with the MLS Cup, I just don't like this best out of 3. Like that makes no sense to me.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if
the first round.
But if you're looking at specifically the Inter Miami versus Atlanta series, I mean, game 1 finished 2-1 in favor of Inter Miami. Game 2 finished 2-1 in favor of Atlanta United. They would have gone straight to PKs or done some sort of overtime. And I would have rather that than have to go back and play a third game. I mean, I just think that having a 3-game first round is a joke. I know a lot of people enjoyed it because there were some blowouts, like in the LAFC Vancouver matchup. LAFC won the first game, but Vancouver won the second game 5-0. So had you had played 2 games, Vancouver would have gone through because of the goal differential and having more goals within the series. So I'm with you, Vlad. I think if they're going to have this tournament, they need to go into a home and home, make it a little bit different. But again, I am completely against the playoffs. And look, Inter Miami, at the end of the day, they just folded, man. The guy who gets paid the most money in the league to show up only had 1 goal and 1 assist during the entire playoff series. Suarez only had 1 goal. He did not play his best. I'm the first one, I support him 100%, but I'm the first one to come out and say he didn't show up. He didn't show up in any of the games, maybe just the first game. So look, it was a combination of that. And also, let's not forget our 2 best midfielders in Sergio Busquets and Yannick Bright. And I'm going to hit you with a stat, Dan, in about 20 seconds. But Busquets was out both the away game at Atlanta and almost the whole game, the third game at home. Bright was out the entire second half and the entire third game. Now, let me give you this stat, guys, and then you can let me know. Inter Miami gave up 1 goal versus Atlanta while Yannick Bright was in the game during the postseason. They gave up 5 goals when Yannick Bright was not in the game against Atlanta. So that goes to show you that there's certain players that Inter Miami was missing that would have made a difference. Now, they still have the team to be able to beat this team in the 3-game series. But unfortunately, Atlanta United was Inter Miami's kryptonite this year. They were only able to beat them that one time in the playoffs, and then they lost 3 games to them this year and tied one. So, unfortunately, it just wasn't their year. At least they were able to win the Supporters Cup Shield, and they're going to the Club World Cup. But definitely not the storybook ending we all hope for, right?
I got to give their goalie a tremendous amount of respect. He was phenomenal. I know we were saying that Messi and Suarez didn't play their normal top shelf games, but they had opportunities, but they were being denied. Like that goalie was sitting on top of his head, because if the goals go in, we're not saying that these guys didn't deliver. We're saying that they're doing what they're doing. No, they had chances to deliver. They were being denied with some unbelievable saves by Guzan. I got to give him credit.
I mean,
but
I'm curious. You guys think he was on some compound V or
I
was
don't
that normal?
know, bro. That was 3. It's 3 games. Like that first game could have been a blowout. And then it was like, when you think about it, it's like, Inter Miami didn't play well. Yeah, they were good enough to eke out a 2-1 victory. And I'm like, they didn't play well, but that goalie was playing out of his ass. Like, and then in Atlanta, he had to play out of his ass. Remember, they scored that second goal to win late. Inter was putting a tremendous amount of pressure on Guzan, and he was just denying them. So game 3 last Saturday, you figured the home crowd, Chase Stadium, you got Messi, you got Suarez, you got Busquets, you got Colin. You're going to get these guys. And he continued playing good. To me, it was the equivalent of seeing an unbelievable, like seeing Sergei Bobrovsky going crazy with the Panthers. Like when that hockey goal, when you're in the playoff and that hockey team that has this tremendous goalie that all the great scoring forwards or centers in hockey are trying to score on him and he's denying them. You start thinking that these guys aren't playing well. It's not that they're not playing well. This guy's just playing better than everybody else right now. And that's what Guzan was doing the last 3 games.
You nailed it, man. You nailed it. So he's the only goalie that I believe in the history in the MLS playoffs who has recorded more than 8 saves in more than 1 game in a series. I mean, he was literally, for those of you that watch The Boys, he was on some compound V. I have zero doubt. He was definitely, putting it into him. There's no doubt. I mean, he just played the best series I've ever seen a goalie play in MLS playoffs in the history. It was unbelievable.
Try to put this in perspective for those that maybe don't follow soccer that closely. How big of an upset is this? Let's look at maybe another sport to kind of compare. Like Inter Miami breaks the record for best regular season ever. You've got the greatest player of all time, possibly, in Lionel Messi, some of the other Suarez. You've got the coaching. You've done everything. This is MLS. How big of an upset is this? Maybe in terms of another sport, like maybe give us another team or something that if they would falter would be kind of similar to what Inter Miami unfortunately did.
Yeah, the clearest one that I can think of right off the top of my head, and something that just happened, maybe a handful of years ago, was the Golden State Warriors breaking the record and basically going 73-9, right? They go 73-9, they break the Chicago Bulls record. Let's say the Golden State Warriors would have lost in the first round against the 8 seed that year. That would be, kind of what it is. But here's the difference, Dan Day and Vlad. Here's the difference, guys. In soccer, anybody can win any game. Right. Anything can happen. In basketball, where it's 5 against 5, it's very, very rare for the underdog team to be able to win 4 games in a series against the favorite. It's just very, very tough because it's less players. In soccer, I mean, anything can happen on any given day. That's why it's the most beautiful sport in the world. And that's why these things can happen. So I understand, again, going back to the playoffs, why it's so great. Because look, at the end of the story, at the end of the day, it's a great story for Atlanta, right? I mean, they beat arguably the greatest team ever to be assembled in MLS history, and they knocked them out. And they played them well all 3 games, and they could have won all 3 games. That's the worst part. I mean, that's how well Brad Guzan played, and the rest of the team responded.
So terrible for soccer and for MLS. And
that's what that was the question I was about to ask, Dan. So thanks for the setup. Thanks for the pass.
I'm your Sergio Busquets.
There you go, man. I'll put in the goal like Messi should have. how disappointed is Apple and the MLS right now, not having this team, not having this team in the playoff, having this team eliminated in the first round? Or are they starting to rethink the regulations and the amount of teams that they have in the playoffs, or the amount of games that they need to do in the first round? Because obviously there was a lot of, like we said earlier, there was a lot of back and forth on if it was a positive or negative, but you got to look at it as a negative when your number one team, number one player is no longer in the playoffs anymore.
And not even just the number one team. I mean, you also have to look at Columbus Crew. Columbus Crew was knocked out by by the Red Bulls. Columbus Crew was the second best team in the season. Arguably, that should have been the finals, Inter Miami and Columbus, and that's what we were looking forward to in the conference finals, right? The other team that got knocked out, Cincinnati, was also one of the top teams, and they got knocked out by NYCFC. A little bit better, obviously, than an Atlanta United or than the New York Red Bulls, but you have all these underdogs winning. Now, getting back to your question, the day that Inter Miami was playing Game 3, I don't know if you guys caught it, but Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, tweeted out, big game today, or something about Messi's playing today. So that goes to show you that Apple is looking at these types of things. Now, in terms of are they looking at it in the playoffs? Do they want to switch the format? Honestly, I don't know. What's going to happen. I think they're going to have to see, what ends up happening during the playoffs. Let it play out, see what the viewership is like. But there's absolutely no doubt that having Inter Miami out, having Columbus out, I mean, the good teams are out. And obviously, I think the viewership is going to go down, especially with Inter Miami out, because everybody tunes in to watch Messi, whether it's just in Miami, in the United States, or around the world. So are they going to lose those viewers for the rest of the playoffs?
So Dan was just saying that two small market teams like Columbus and Cincinnati being knocked out will affect ratings, while big markets like New York and LA have teams still in the playoffs. So it would have been better for MLS to have a conference final of Inter Miami versus was it Columbus?
Correct.
Than it would be for Inter Miami to go against the Red Bulls.
100%. 100%. Just because the actual game would have just been more attractive. I mean, obviously, Inter Miami has played Columbus Crew a couple times this season. Every time they've played, it's been a fantastic game. And they're arguably the two best teams in the league. So, I mean, on the podcast that I've been on over the last week, I've been very vocal. I've said that they need to change the format of the playoffs, maybe take the top two in each conference, play a semifinals, and then play a finals. Or maybe just take the top team in each conference and just meet in the finals. Obviously, MLS isn't going to do that because they love the playoffs. They love the money that comes from it. And they love exploiting all of that. And I get it. Now, getting back into Apple and what they're doing in order to get teams to spend money. I absolutely 100% think that Apple is pressuring MLS to change some of the roster rules, because with the Club World Cup coming up, Inter Miami, and we're going to get into that, Inter Miami is looking at some players, some really interesting players, but can they bring them in with the way that the current roster regulations are set? I don't think so. I don't think that the MLS can make a splash in the Club World Cup with these teams the way that they're currently constructed. So I do think that Apple is going to put a lot of pressure on the MLS in this offseason to go ahead and make some changes, allow some of these owners who want to spend, and let them bring in some players.
From the Battered Heron podcast, Daniel Solana. Let's talk about the future now. Inter Miami, what's in the past is in the past. We can't change that. Does this now mean, and we're going to get to some maybe the new additions, but the old additions, the current team, more likely now that Messi's going to stick around another year? We know Suarez is looking at signing a contract, or has already signed a contract, that maybe these guys don't want to go out like that. So we might still see a lot of the same star power on the team going forward.
100%. Yeah. Messi is definitely, has a deal signed through 2025. He'll become a free agent in 2026. Although I do think that if he continues to play at the level he's playing, he'll probably sign for one more year, since the World Cup 2026 is going to be in the United States. So I would see Messi opening the new stadium on opening day. Now, Who's going to be his partner that day? And when is he coming? The biggest news has been Neymar.
Of course. Why was Neymar's name thrown out there?
Some land? Something about land?
Yeah, I mean, so he purchased a plot of land. I think it was $26 million, a plot of land out in Bal Harbor. There is a house that is going to go on there, 13,200 square feet, that is already designed and ready to be developed to go on that plot of land. So I know Neymar spends a lot of time in Miami. He loves going to the Heat games. He loves spending time on South Beach. But I don't think somebody's spending that kind of money for a vacation home. Although, I mean, he's loaded and stuff. But look, I think Neymar is the big name that's coming next.
And he's out of contract next year around mid-year.
That's correct. He's done with his contract at the end of the season. But there is a lot of talk that they're trying to get him in now, like you said, Dan, in the winter. So there has been talks between Neymar and Al Hilal to get his contract. He basically wants to get released from his contract, and he wants to come. And I think that's great marketing for the MLS. I mean, to reunite the MSN, Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, one of the greatest trios to share the pitch at Barcelona, having them in the MLS, where obviously the league is a little bit weaker than Europe. I mean, I think that's going to be unbelievable marketing, and it's going to be great for the team as well.
Cause for concern: Santos being elevated in Brazil to Serie A.
No cause for concern.
There's talk that Neymar wants to go back to the team that as a teenager he won a championship with.
Yeah, he does, but I think he wants to play with his buddies a little bit longer. The other name who's been extremely out there, and he just got released from his contract with Juventus, hasn't played in a long time. He won't be available to play until March 2025, but he is able to practice with his new team if he signs, and that's Paul Pogba. The French international who was on Juventus has also played for United. I know you're a fan, Dan. He hasn't played in such a long time. I would personally, I'd be against it. But at this point, I mean, any addition, any big name, if he can offer some value to the team, I'm all for it. You got excited, Dan. You got excited. I said Paul Pogba. You got excited.
Pogba, Griezmann. I would love to see Antoine Griezmann in the pink and black. That would be a very exciting time for me. But I really do think Messi is got every plan to continue to play up into the World Cup, and then he'll retire after the World Cup.
Absolutely. I don't doubt it. And obviously with Inter Miami opening Miami Freedom Park in 2026, right there at the old Mel Reese location, what better way than to open it than having Messi on the pitch on opening day? So that's why I think there's no doubt that Messi will be here on opening day 2026, and he'll be leading the team out of the tunnel. And, we'll see what we can do next year. But before we get into 2026, it'll be all about next year. We got a big year, Club World Cup. A bunch of trophies. They're playing CONCACAF champions again. They're playing MLS Cup. There's news that they might be playing US Open Cup. There's a lot of news that Apple might be buying the rights to US Open Cup, giving way for all the MLS teams to participate again. So a lot to play for in Inter Miami in 2025. And the fact that they won't be going away for a very long preseason tournament also plays into their favor. Yeah. They'll be, doing their preseason at home in Miami. They've already got a couple games planned out. So 2025 is going to look to be a great year.
Preseason, we talked about Inter Miami just win everything, and they won 0 trophies this year. Put a bow on that. Daniel Solana, if you're watching us right now on YouTube or Twitch, you see you have a little Uruguay love. You got the kit on. I'll let you do a little victory lap. No. You got a little victory lap. Give us a victory lap right now.
I mean, it was definitely something that I've been waiting for a while. Obviously, you guys know I was at the semifinal game, Colombia, Uruguay. It wasn't the greatest experience. Yesterday, we got a little bit of our revenge. It was a great game. Colombia scored that first goal in the first half. Uruguay tied it, was able to pull ahead. Colombia scored in injury time in the second half. And in the 101st minute, on the very first play after Colombia scored, Uruguay was able to put that third goal in. And I yelled that goal so hard that my son started crying, and he got so mad at me. He's like, you can't yell so much. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. That's how I feel it. But it was so great to let that one out. I'm pretty sure my entire neighborhood heard me.
Speaking of father-son, did you get a little freaked out last night when Mike Tyson kissed his son, then showed his bare ass to the whole world?
I mean, I wasn't surprised about him showing his bare ass. He's known for doing that type of stuff. Kissing your son is a little bit weird. I will say you that. But
it was kissing his son, and then it was just like, okay. First of all, I'm upset with the cameraman. You got to know the man is his cheek,
waist up.
It's like he's showing cheeks. So you got to understand, like once he's walking away, you're still filming him. You're showing America ass cheeks. I don't think we were ready for. I know I was not ready for seeing that. I don't want to see a 61-year-old man's ass. So
I mean, the glutes are in shape, though. I'll tell you that, man. I don't want to see it either, but his glutes are in shape.
oh man, it's a vision I
nice.
can't get out of my. I can't get it out now. It's like it's etching my. I was like, what was that? It was just weird.
It would have been great had he came out and boxed in that. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that would have been great. It would have been if he was like Yokozuna back in the WWE days. Coming
That's
out
what
with
it
with
definitely
a little
looked like. It
sumo
looked
thing.
like a little miniature of Yokozuna.
It would have been great had he came out in that. I lost money though. I thought he was gonna win. I thought he was gonna knock Jake Paul out, but
he had a shot in the first round. That was it.
You knew at the end of the second round that money's gone. One more thing. We had a terrible weekend with Inter Miami losing last week, but basically everybody lost but the Dolphins. Hurricanes still control their own destiny. Wake Forest, Syracuse, they win those two games. They win the ACC championship game. They are into the college football playoff. Do you see this Miami Hurricanes football team winning out these next quote unquote 3 games?
No doubt. No doubt. I think the Georgia Tech game was a big wake-up call. Obviously, UM's been playing in close games all year, right? Every year or every game has essentially been a close game other than the Duke game where we blew them out in the second half. It's been close. So, I think it was kind of a wake-up call. Mario Cristobal is going to, he's going to lean into his guys there. He's going to voice his opinions, and I think they'll be back and they'll win out. And, I don't understand these guys that vote for the college football playoff and stuff like that. I don't really get it. I don't understand how so many SEC teams with 1 loss, so many Big Ten teams with 1 loss were ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 ahead of UM and some of these other teams that were undefeated. But look, as long as UM controls their own destiny and win out, this could be the year. We always say it. The U is back.
I sure believe in that. Real quick before we let you go, Daniel Solana, Battered Herons podcast. Now that Inter Miami is out of the playoffs for MLS, as a soccer fan, what can we look forward to these next couple of weeks or couple of months?
There's a lot to look forward to. So in the MLS, you've got a lot of dates now coming up in November and December. You have the expansion draft for the new team out there in San Diego. So Inter Miami is going to have to, over the next couple of weeks, reserve some of the players to not be on the list to be drafted. So you have that. Then you also have the end of the year, roster signings and releases and things that have to happen. So the month of December is going to be really interesting. You have the super draft, and then you have the transfer window coming up. So a lot of interesting things coming up in the next month and a half for Inter Miami, even though they're out of the playoffs. There's still going to be a lot of names tied to them. So, keep checking into my account, keep checking into Battered Herons. And I know you guys will be doing your part to support Inter Miami and always throwing out the information out there. So definitely stay tuned, guys. It's going to be an interesting couple months.
Yeah, one thing to look forward to, whether Inter Miami is playing or not, Daniel Solana, and when we're on the air, you're coming to join us. You're always invited, and we're going to have you on no matter what. Rain or shine, Inter Miami, you are going to be a part of this show. We
and always remember, he's the better Solana.